Well, welcome to the CEU Executive MBA Virtual Open Day. My name is Thomas Lammel, the Senior Program Manager, and I'm happy to guide you through the Open Day. Thank you for joining us from around the world. We are running a chat box. You're welcome to use the chat box now to tell us your location right now. We're very interested in that. Speaking of location, today you will get to see both campuses since Yusaf, Akbar, and I are in our tiered state-of-the-art classroom on our brand new Vienna campus. Yusuf, please show. That's our brand new state-of-the-art tiered classroom in Vienna. And our program coordinator, Akos, is on our Budapest campus. Akos?
Thank you very much, Thomas, and welcome everyone here in this very special open day. I'm indeed sitting in the tiered room of the Budapest campus, which you can see right behind me. It's a little empty right now, but it cannot wait to get some action back very soon.
Oh, it will. Once the university lockdown is over, it's going to be crowded again, I guess. So thank you, Akos. So what to expect for today? We will start with the short lecture on Outrun the Crisis with Big Data by our keynote speaker, Professor Miklos Koren. Then our faculty co-directors, Professor Akbar and Professor Kisilowski, will then present the CEU Executive MBA. You will then meet CEU MBA alumni and CEU Executive MBA participants. At the end of the event, you'll have a general Q&A session with us. We will collect your questions from the Q&A and answer them in the relevant Q&A sessions. So let's start with the short lecture by Miklos Koren. Miklos Koren is a professor of economics at CEU. He's founder of the Business Analytics Master's Program and the CEU Microdata Research Group. He received his PhD from Harvard University, and before coming to CEU, he worked at the Federal Reserve Bank of New York and at Princeton University. Feel free to add your questions in the Q&A section, as we will have time to ask Miklos a few of them afterwards. Miklos, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Thomas, for the kind introduction. And thank you for the opportunity to share my ideas about how we can use big data to think about and maybe even outrun the crisis, as the title suggests. So using data and theory to predict the unprecedented. So before we begin, let me mention you two of my passions. And I think you can guess one of them from this picture. So I really love running, and in particular trail running. And my other passion is measurement. I like to measure everything. And of course, I'll tell you more about that today. But it's actually very easy to combine measurement and running. So what I usually like to do, in these sports watches nowadays, they measure everything: your heart rate, your speed, elevation, GPS, everything. And they can give you kind of real-time feedback on your current status of how you're doing on your run. And I like to use this in a race. So this picture was taken in a recent race to predict, how I'm doing in terms of my goal time for that particular race. But for this, I need kind of the good data from my watch. I need to be able to see my pace and everything. But I also need to have a bit of a framework, a bit of a structure to think about the race going forward. So in a shorter race, the kind that I've done quite a few before, that's kind of straightforward. But if I run a long race or a totally unknown terrain where I haven't run before, then it can be pretty complicated. Even though I have real-time measurements from my watch, I might have no idea that that mountain is coming that I have to climb and how long it's going to take me. So what I would like to kind of tell you about, of course, connected to the economy and business, is how real-time measurement, but also a framework to think about things can help prediction. But you actually do need both. So in order to make a prediction, be it for the race time or the economy, you need timely and relevant data, but you also need some structure that's robust, that you can use for predicting. So the topic that I would like to start with is what I call the crisis in official statistics. So I'm mostly focusing on the economic side of the current pandemic and not the health aspect, because this is what I'm doing research on. And you can read it in two ways, how the crisis shows up in official statistics, but also a little bit flipped around in the sense that official statistics is in a bit of a crisis, because if things are happening so fast, then the usual way of collecting information can be rather slow and not give us timely data. So this graph is from the New York Times, plotting the share of workers that are unemployed. And if you, in the last couple of decades, and if you look at the previous big recession, relative to that recession, in just 2 months of data, the unemployment rate already shot up to 14.7%. So a very, very big jump in a very short period of time. So when things are happening so fast, then official statistics will find it hard to kind of keep track what's going on. Now, there are other sources of information, so big data, if you like. And one argument that I would like to make here has been made by Stephen Davidovitz in a book called Everybody Lies. And we're actually going to be discussing this book in more detail in the data and digital transformation module during the Executive MBA. But the basic thesis of the book is that when you go online to do a Google search, then you're providing real-time and even not only faster, but more accurate information that Google actually captures and shares with researchers properly anonymized. So for example, if you think about unemployment, then people checking for unemployment benefit claims on Google, how to do this, if they are doing it in the first time, likely they're going to go on Google and check the steps of how to do that. And that very second, Google will have a record of that, and then researchers can make a faster and more accurate prediction of what unemployment is going to look like. So just to give you an example of how this looked like, for example, for Hungary, and the reason why this is relevant is that the Hungarian Statistical Office operates with an even bigger lag than the American one. So we still don't have unemployment numbers for April, but my colleagues István Kónya and János Köllő, based on data from Google, are predicting that the number of unemployed has reached 400,000 in April. Okay, so in a little bit, when the official statistics come out, we will see whether this prediction was correct, but people have done similar predictions for the US, and indeed, Google does a pretty good job in predicting these, even these big jumps in unemployment. And this is just to show, kind of to validate that the prediction model performed pretty well in the past. Now, another type of another source of big data that's very helpful in thinking about how the economy is responding to the crisis is coming from your cell phones. Okay, so everybody is moving around with cell phones, and a lot of times these phones are tracking our location. And this is also from Google. So whoever has an Android phone and has explicitly opted in for location history, then Google is storing their location wherever they go, and properly anonymize them so that no individual location can be uncovered from the data, and then analyze them and also share this data with scientists to study. And so this pattern is from New York County, which is basically the island of Manhattan. And we see that the number of times people have visited retail establishments and recreation-related establishments in Manhattan has dropped by more than 80% once the pandemic really flared up. Also transit stations, so basically bus stations and subway stations have seen a lot fewer visits. So practically people have stopped taking transit in New York. Of course, we know these from journalist accounts and other people's accounts and from social media, or how people are reacting, but I think it's very important to have a quantitative sense of how big the response of the economy is. In order to zoom in a little bit, another source of data that I would like to highlight here is credit card spending. And the reason why this is super interesting, because we can get an even more granular view what's happening in the economy, because in a credit card company really sees the vendor who's providing the good or a service and sees the customer who is buying. So they have a lot of information, sometimes even more than Google has. And this is data from Denmark, looking at different categories of spending and how they changed with the pandemic relative to data from the previous year. And we can see that the biggest gaps in spending are in travel. So people basically stop traveling and stop spending on travel-related items. Correspondingly, fuel spending has gone down. Basically, people stop going to restaurants altogether. So there's no spending on that type of food. But there's actually a lot of spending on groceries and pharmacies. So there are certain types of businesses that don't necessarily suffer from the crisis. So and there are actually a lot of very, very interesting examples of how to use real-time data to think about the effect of the crisis. But what they have in common is that they are more timely than official statistics. Official statistics are often based on surveys that are done quite regularly, but maybe once a month or once a week, whereas real-time data, you immediately, basically in a matter of minutes, you can get these sources of data. And statistics is often based on a small sample, even if it's 10,000 people, but for a large country, that might be a small sample, whereas the Google data is based on the population of people who have Android phones in their pockets. So it has this kind of real-time data has this important feature that might provide very useful in thinking about the way forward. But remember, example from running, I mean, having the real-time data is one thing, making an accurate predictions from that is quite another. So let me, to kind of drive that point home, let me mention this case of the North Sea flood in the Netherlands in 1953. Okay, so what happened then is that, as you're aware, much of the area of the Netherlands is actually below sea level. So there's a complicated system of levees and dams and dikes and everything, so to keep the sea out of the country. And in 1953, there was basically a perfect storm in that the tide was such, and then there was a wind coming in the in kind of the bad direction. And so these levees have broken, and a large fraction of the country was flooded, and with an immense loss of life. And then there was a committee set up to investigate what happened, and of course, how to avoid these kind of catastrophes in the future. And really, if you think about it, this is kind of a risk management task that the committee has been given, in the sense that, you know, we're never going to be able to say for sure that the country is not going to be flooded again, because the sea is the sea. But by building, you know, higher and higher dams, we can reduce the risk of the flooding. So if we select a dam height, you know, very, very high, then the flood is going to happen in every 1,000 years or so. So that kind of trade-off is crucial for risk management. The challenge here is that the data that you're collecting are kind of from normal times, when the floods are not very extreme in this area. And then you have to extrapolate from there, you know, what would happen in very extreme cases when everything is really just a perfect storm. How high a levee you need for you know, to withstand those kind of tides as well. And this is actually kind of what went wrong with in Fukushima. They had a model to predict this. They had a very extreme tsunami there in 2011, and their model was not correct in kind of capturing the likelihood of those type of tsunamis, and hence the major catastrophe. But in order to make this kind of prediction, I think it's important to keep in mind the limitation of machine learning models and artificial intelligence, because they are all based on the idea, no matter how sophisticated the algorithm they use, they are all based on the idea is that the future will be like the past. Okay, so if I'm a Dutch scientist trying to predict how high the tides can go, you know, the only data I have was data collected from the past, and it's hard to extrapolate from there. It's even harder when we're thinking about the economy, which is unlike the C, it's actually composed of businesses and workers and consumers who are making decisions. They are interacting with one another, and there's a lot of feedback in this system that can make it a very unstable and very hard to predict system. So let me quote our founder here, George Soros, who has been a big proponent of this idea of reflexivity, that reality and thinking have this two-way connection. What people think is going to change reality, but how reality behaves is going to change what people think. And I think whenever we want to make predictions about the society or the economy, we have to keep this in mind. So the way I like to think about this in the context of the current crisis is the following. We have a lot of data now with these new data sources about how behavior has changed in response to, people are worried about their health, so they stay at home. There are policies to shut down schools, so people change their behavior. If the restaurant is not open, then I'm not going to go to the restaurant. So how behavior is we have a lot of real-time data on how people behave, but that doesn't necessarily mean that we'll be able to very well predict, how can we change this behavior? And I think that's the number one question. If next year, once the lockdowns are hopefully over and hopefully the pandemic has died down, how are consumers, workers, and businesses' behavior going to be different than they are now? In order to think about it, we have to think about things that are fixed. So remember, the assumption was that things are going to be like tomorrow. Tomorrow things are going to be like today, which is going to be true for something, but not for others. We are certainly hoping that virus transmission is going to be different because people are wearing masks and washing hands more often. So hopefully virus transmission is going to be lower than it was in the past. But a lot of other questions about, will global supply chains ever be the same if you cannot travel long distance or if you cannot meet your suppliers? A very interesting discussion that I'm seeing in the press is about commercial real estate, how firms are rethinking their strategy of locating in huge office buildings, thousands of workers in the middle of very expensive cities. And is it really worth them, or is it better to let some people work from home? I'm actually on this. I'm more of the view that this is more of a, and I say why. This is more of a transitory trend that we see. Right now, a lot of people are working from home, but exactly the fact that a lot of office buildings are out there means that there must be some very, very important feature of face-to-face communication that is very important for businesses and that they are not willing to give it up. And indeed, when we looked at, with my colleague Rita Petter, we looked at different kinds of jobs, whether it is important for you to communicate face-to-face with your coworkers, so that would be teamwork, or with your customers. It turns out that in a lot of jobs, it's super, super important. So 100% means that every day, several times, you need face-to-face communication to effectively do your job. So if you're a dentist, of course, you cannot work from home as a dentist, but there are other jobs that may be more amenable to working from home. And to get a bit of a sense of what businesses think about this, we asked the current class of executive and MBA students to think about this issue, and in a very small survey, give us some feedback on what are the things that they are worried about that cannot be really done from home. And basically, the number one issue that has come up is that because of trust is very important in face-to-face meetings are very important in building trust. The lack of face-to-face meetings is actually hindering new business opportunities. And so that's kind of qualifies my prediction that I don't think that commercial office space is going to disappear. I think working from home is great as kind of a remedy when we have no other option. But I think and also hope that eventually we're going back to fairly pretty much back to where we were before, exactly because of these very, very strong benefits of face-to-face meetings. So with that, let me conclude and thank you for the attention, but also pose some questions for discussion, and I'm happy to answer or discuss these in the Q&A. So how does COVID affect your business, or what do you think, which of these effects you think will be transitory versus permanent? And as I said, happy to discuss this right now in the Q&A, but also feel free to reach out to me on Twitter, and here's my Twitter handle. Thank you.
Thank you, Miklos, for the short lecture. Of course, the short lecture is being followed by questions. We've got a couple of them from the audience. One question is directly from the chat box. It's referring to the delay in official data. What's the reason for this delay in official data? Is it bureaucracy? And doesn't this also have the risk that anyone can start publishing numbers, some without real data? What do you think, Miklos, on that?
So this delay varies quite a bit by country. And I think there is a good reason that there is kind of a certain standard that statistical offices go by of how they set up a survey, who are the people that they ask, because it's important, especially in a time like this, when it's hard to reach people in the normal way. Suppose the way you collect data on prices, for example, still to this very day, surveyors go out to shops and check the prices in stores, and they see if this price has gone up from last month or not. Now, if the store is closed or the surveyor is not allowed to go in, then it's hard to do it this way. But statistical offices have been doing these kind of surveys for a very long time, and they know the methods, and it's important to keep the methods consistent over time. So that has its benefits, and I think that's the primary reason why there is a delay, because we do doing these surveys take time.
Ben sorry, please go ahead.
Just going to continue with the second part of the question. I think it is a risk that now all kinds of numbers can pop up, and exactly with there's less quality assurance if it's not done by a proper statistical agency. People have been using Google Trends data for some time now, and you really have to know what Google is reporting, how they are reporting it to be able to analyze it. And Google has no obligation whatsoever to keep reporting the same data in the future, because they are not a statistical agency. So I'm not advocating to replace agencies. Maybe a mixed approach is the best here.
And Ben has a follow-up question. Do you think that we will see people moving out of cities?
So my personal view, but again, this is not much more than a personal view, but it's driven by some measurement. Exactly in the past, say 100 years, there was a tremendous success story for cities. Cities have become the hubs for knowledge creation. Okay, so they used to be places where people congregate in order to go into big factories to produce very labor-intensive goods. So everyone needed to be close together. But right now, the major function of cities is that people work together to create new knowledge. And I don't think this function will go away. And some of it will move online. So this is kind of what we're doing right now. We are in different parts of the world, and yet we can share ideas, but it will not replace the importance of face-to-face. So my prediction is that cities are going to be very, very resilient.
Mm-hmm. Thanks. And we've got a question from the Q&A section that refers to Google. Google Trends is good for predict trends. What about other programs?
You mean other? Sorry, yeah, okay. Other sources of data, or I mean, one example. Let me give you one other example. Facebook, of course, collects a lot of data about us. And a very nice piece of research that I saw looked at, I think the challenge is exactly trying to predict intent. So not what people are doing right now, but what they want to do a month from now, 2 months from now, or in the summer, in the fall. And this is very, very hard to predict. But people have analyzed Facebook posts on about how people want to spend their vacation, and so they write their friends, okay, with the virus, I'm not going abroad, or we're not going to take a vacation. And with text analysis, you can analyze these posts and try to predict, where people are going to spend their vacation, for example. So there are lots of other sources like this. Here, I mean, it's a clear case that these major platforms have an advantage because they have the biggest amount of data, and they have access to the most people and consumers.
And we have one request from the chat box. He or she is kindly asking you to go back to the reality and thinking slide in the presentation. Maybe
Okay, yeah. So this is
elaborate.
actually this is a plaque on our campus, right by the entrance. Yes. So thinking can never quite catch up with reality. Reality is always richer than our comprehension. And reality has the power to surprise thinking. And thinking has the power to create reality.
And could you please put it into context for those people who joined later?
So the idea is that it's in the context of the economy and society, it's very hard to make prediction just based on, this is past data and this is how people behaved in the past. I'm going to extrapolate from there, which I can do when I analyze sea tides and tsunamis. But if I think about this kind of very evolving system where thinking people are interacting with one another, then this idea captures that we are trying to predict the behavior of people who are themselves changing their behavior. I mean, I think one example where this already showed up very nicely in the current crisis is stay-at-home orders. A lot of governments have issued stay-at-home orders that you're not allowed to leave your home because of the pandemic. It turns out that people were already staying at home before that happened because they were worried about the health consequences. So it's not necessarily the policy that has an effect. It's that people are thinking about the crisis. Everything in the media is about the virus, and they are changing their behavior. And sometimes governments were lagging behind. So in this way, it's kind of reality and thinking were interacting with one another.
Do you think there will be an increase in investments in startups and social investment funds?
So that's a great question. I think even though I'm fairly optimistic in the sense that I don't think there would be a big permanent effect of the crisis on business, but the one effect is uncertainty. So I think people have now realized that how precarious often our lives are, and certainly the economy can be, and this puts a lot of puts on the front of our mind the issue of uncertainty. And whenever there's uncertainty, there's less investment. So that is a potential issue of, are people willing to start new things when they are not quite sure what the future. I think our horizons have drastically shortened. And of course, if you're making an investment and launching a startup, it's good to have a long horizon.
And do you think, as a result of the current situation, when actual physical presence at the workplace is not always possible, that companies may focus more on automation, and by this unemployment would rise even higher?
So I think there will be some effect, some permanent effect on this. I don't want to say that there's nothing, but I don't think it's going to be too big, exactly because of the very, very key importance of face-to-face interaction. It might be that in some jobs, so if I can, when we analyze jobs, how they depend on face-to-face teamwork or face-to-face contact with with customers, there are some jobs that don't require a lot of face-to-face. And so they might be able to, they are more amenable to automation or working from home. But there, I think the big risk, and I agree with the questioner here, that if there's a possibility for working from home, it is certainly not going to be working from an expensive home in New Jersey when the company is in Manhattan. Then it's going to be somewhat more offshoring to cheaper locations.
Thank you very much for the short lecture, Miklos. We have to move on to the next part of the agenda for today. It is the presentation of the actual CEU Executive MBA by Professor Yusaf Akbar and Professor Maciej Kisilowski. Thank you very much, Miklos. Thank you very much.
Sure.
I want to introduce both faculty co-directors to you before they start with the presentation. Professor Yusaf Akbar is one of the faculty co-directors of the CEU Executive MBA and Associate Professor of Strategy. He published over 40 journal articles, 4 books, and numerous contributions to academic and professional research in strategy and international business. He's founding editor of the International Journal of Emerging Markets and an advisor to governmental authorities. His consulting and professional references include Citibank, Deutsche Telekom, Siemens, Texas Instruments, and Toyota. And Professor Maciej Kisilowski is the second faculty co-director of the CEU Executive MBA. He's an associate professor of law and public management. He's got a PhD from Yale, a Master of Public Administration from Princeton, and an MBA from INSEAD. He's an advisor to governments, international organizations, including the European Commission and businesses dealing with political, regulatory, and compliance issues. And his book, Administrategy, translated in 5 languages. Feel free to add again your questions in the Q&A section, as we will have a designated Q&A session at the end to address them. Yusaf and Maciej, you've got the floor. Thank you.
Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to be able to join you here virtually for a brief run-through of the CEU Executive MBA. Myself and Professor Kisilowski want to sort of give you an idea about the concept behind the program, how the program's structured, and to sort of give you a general idea of the key message that we want to get across with the program. Next slide, please. So I think, you know, in today's world, a lot of people are sort of asking a very fundamental question, which is, you know, given the cost of an MBA program today, you know, is the MBA still worth it? If you think about it, you know, the COVID-19 crisis has kind of accelerated trends that we've been seeing generally, you know, a movement towards digital transformation in almost every sphere of social life. Particularly in the workplace. I'm sure many of you who are attending today are sort of experiencing this at first hand. Companies are looking to become more strategically agile and so on. And of course, this also impacts the education business, so that with the growth of online education, you know, one fundamental question kind of emerges here is, you know, as knowledge workers, is an MBA fundamentally still worth it? Thinking about how industries are converging, thinking about sort of how new emerging ecosystems and the creation of shared knowledge and so on. So that essentially sort of the terrain in which professionals and knowledge workers in particular gain experience, gain knowledge, and execute on those ideas, I think is changing fundamentally. And I think this is one of the key ideas underlying our Executive MBA. And Professor Kisilowski is now going to explain sort of the unique aspects and why our program is different from other programs.
Yes, good evening, everybody. Thanks so much for joining. So indeed, you know, faced with those uncertainty and those costs, you can think about a typical decision process that a lot of professionals, mid-career professionals whom we interact and exchange ideas with are going through. And this process is kind of often the process of being kind of torn with the two very different options or market segments in this market of mid-career MBA programs. On the one end of this segment, as you can see on the slide, it is by definition very country specific, but we can brand the one sort of direction that people go, a local MBA or MBA in your city, as because it is focused on a given hub of a given metro area. It obviously varies from country to country and from city to city, but I'm sure virtually all of you would be able to name kind of an obvious program in your metro area that you can join, and it's convenient. It again depends on the country. Is relatively cost efficient, you know, from anywhere from 20-something thousand to 80,000, depending on where you live, and it will have some predictable and often very strong features. Predictable standard, call it plain vanilla MBA curriculum. It will focus mostly on faculty from that given hub where you live and work. It will offer a flexible format that does not ask you to interrupt your work, which obviously radically decreases the total cost of ownership of this education, because you can still earn your income. And now, so that's one option. On the other end, you have what we can call leading business schools. And the leading business schools are built on a very different concept. They almost always have some sort of mission-driven or highly differentiated curriculum. If you think about it, you know, you think Wharton finance, Stanford entrepreneurship, yes, kind of business and conservative values. They have very international faculty. You normally don't have any kind of national group that kind of dominates faculty or student body. This mission drivenness and this differentiation is very important, you know, for attracting faculty who want to go this extra mile, and also creating something that a lot of people are actually very much driven into, which is this campus experience, this idea that kind of midway through your professional career, you can kind of go back to this sort of fertile ground for new ideas, for discussion, that is very much different from what you do every day in your professional life. Now, the problem with those programs is that they are extremely expensive. Every year they become more and more expensive. And very often there are now some exceptions which are even more expensive than average, kind of part-time exceptions. But most of them still require at least 1 and mostly 2 years in the US, 2 years of commitment, full-time commitment, which involves family relocation and lost income. And from that context, the program that we are offering at CEU is kind of a unique middle way here, because it does take some very good aspects from your local MBA that you can consider as kind of the easy and affordable option. It's an extraordinarily inexpensive program because of our endowment. Will more about it so that you understand what is behind this very, very attractive price point. It has a very kind of serious differentiating factor, which we call the EMBA for the open world. And again, we'll explain a little more about what that means and what are kind of the values of the university. Miklos already has discussed a little bit of them. but we'll give you a bigger, broader picture. But just like in your top American university, research-oriented university, that sense of differentiation, that sense of identity that CEU has, creates huge benefits in terms of this campus atmosphere, attracting top-level faculty, and having a very, very international student body. By very international, I mean this year alone at CEU, we have graduate students from 108 countries. We have active alumni chapters in 136 countries around the world. So it's very difficult to go, beyond that level of international and diverse, actually times higher education recently nominated us as the second most international university in the world. Handing back to my colleague.
Next slide, please. So as Professor Kisilowski has just emphasized, we have some extraordinarily capable faculty that will deliver first-class education. One example is Professor Mark Kaufman, who is an expert in behavioral economics and will be joining us in the class. Professor Caitlin Brown, who's thinking, writing, influencing debates deeply on the issue of inequality and what that means for the global economy and for businesses. We're extremely lucky to have Professor Adam Zawodowski, one of the leading thinkers in finance today, and he has a very interesting sort of approach to helping people better understand, why they make certain kinds of corporate financial decisions. And we have the Jean Monnet Chair in EU Energy Innovation, Professor Michael Labelle, who will be co-teaching our innovation class in the EMBA. And that brings me to some of the visiting faculty. Christian Silos from Stanford is co-teaching the innovation class with Professor Labelle. Miklos Koren from Columbia will be with us to offer a course on digital marketing. We have Professor Paola Caproni from Michigan, who is our leadership module leader, and Omar Hernandez from Berkeley, UC Berkeley, who will be teaching the operations management class.
So let me now give you a brief overview of the program structure. So the basic philosophy behind how this program has been put together is we want to create, as close to a full-time MBA experience, something that you would experience by leaving workplace for a year or 2 years and immersing yourself in a campus in North America, but without interrupting your work life. You do not need to suspend your work. You do not need to relocate to Vienna to do this program because of our highly innovative modular setup. As you can see, the entire degree is offered over the course of 25 months, so a relatively long period of time, in a series, actually to be precise, in 9 4 or 9 day modules. So you either fly to Vienna or Budapest for a long weekend, starting Thursday afternoon, finishing Sunday just after lunch, or you come for this longer module where you start on Saturday. So you get in Friday night and it goes until the Sunday after 1 week. And as you can see, in addition to this being sort of very compact, but more than a weekend, it's very important that it's not just a weekend program, because you cannot create this atmosphere of exchange of ideas, chatting with your faculty members after class just over, Saturday and Sunday. So it's a little longer. But what about your work days? Well, as if you look at the slide, we actually smartly bet on the sort of popular European long weekends. So the longer modules are around mid-August, which in some countries, August 15 is a holiday, but generally it's kind of a little slower business season for most businesses. Around May the 1st, which is again in many countries a holiday, and around sometimes also around November 1st. So actually allows you to come for those longer modules in sort of the best, for most people, the most convenient timing. And as you can see, the modules are generally focused on a topic, on a theme. So we'll cover those important issues, finance, big data, and digital transformation, strategic operations management, innovation, marketing and consumer behavior. And everything here is sort of delivered with a view of a little more senior, more advanced managers. We have this admission threshold of 8 years of work experience, including 3 years of leadership experience, because the curriculum is tailored for those more mid-career colleagues and professionals. So we can discuss more details on this during the Q&A. I just want to come back to this idea about the alumni network. That just like visualizes what I mentioned earlier. And this is just an incredible and very loyal. That's another very important thing about those sort of more differentiated, less plain vanilla programs like ours. We have the university, because it's built on very specific set of values. It has this extremely loyal alumni body of people who come to CEU for a reason, and that shows. It's not just an address book, it's a community. And I traveling for my professional engagements, I'm sure Yusaf has the same experience. It's always a welcoming and tightly knit community. Now, let me tell you a few words on how this is possible, how we can build a program that is truly world class, with all those aspirations, with all this differentiation, and with all this quality that you've seen at this extremely affordable price point. So it all comes to the extreme, unprecedented generosity of the founders. Mr. George Soros, mentioned already by Miklos. A lot of those expressions of generosity have been widely publicized in international media. This is just an article from January this year, when Mr. Soros at Davos announced $1 billion grant for the university network, Open Society University Network, that is co-founded by our university, by CEU, with a number of leading institutions. But this is not only a pile of money. There are values behind this, and again, Professor Koren already mentioned you some of them. Let me give you sort of the sense of what this EMBA for the open world and generally this open society university is. So the idea of the open society was first introduced by an Austrian, actually, an Austrian philosopher, Karl Popper, and the basic idea is that especially educational institutions like ours have a great responsibility to create a kind of discussion on campus where the traditional hierarchies, dogmas, and even privileges simply don't exist. They are out of the picture because what replaces them is what we can call radical rationality. Basically the idea that every argument, every statement, every conventional wisdom can and should be challenged. What follows from this idea is the focus on facts and arguments, which is why we have one of those leading data analytics programs in Europe, led by Professor Koren, because it is also in line with the open society mission. Focus on facts, on something that can be proven or falsified, as opposed to simply asserted or manipulated. We are very serious, and this is not just tolerance. We cherish diversity. We explicitly invite different perspectives, different backgrounds. And we also believe, and that comes, that kind of explains the price point of the program. We do believe in redistributing social and managerial power. We believe that managerial education should be democratized, and thereby those unaffordable tuition price points that most MBA programs offer kind of limit the access to high quality management education. And we want to remedy it because we are able to afford it, having a very large endowment fund. Actually, CEU has the third largest endowment after Oxford and Cambridge in Europe. So, this is a brief overview, and now I hand back to my colleague, Professor Akbar, to tell you a little bit about the sense how the classroom of our CEU Executive MBA looks like.
Thanks very much. Next slide, please, Maciej. So, the CEU MBA, I think, you know, in addition to the philosophical and substantive points that Professor Kisilowski has made just now, I think we can also be singularly proud of the quality of the participants. And at CEU, we fundamentally believe that high quality management education isn't just about our expert faculty sharing their knowledge and ideas with you. It's also about the participants being co-creators in the learning experience. We have a very, very interactive case-based instruction method. We make extensive use of case studies, a lot of which are actually written by the faculty themselves. So these are faculty that have actually worked with the organizations on a consulting basis, so they know the organization inside out. You know, some business schools will have case studies where the professors teach the case studies, but they don't actually know the companies, they know the case study. We're very happy to know that many of our faculty actually author their own case studies. It's a very immersive learning experience. So you come to us for four days, and it's really, really, you know, high intensity learning. And we want you to come prepared for those 4 days. So all of the faculty will give you some kind of pre-module assignment to work on. And we also want you to ensure that when you leave us after those 4 very intensive days, that you go away and you think about something, and there's another deliverable as a post-course assignment. I think if someone was to ask me what is the key message that we want to get across to you from a professional development perspective, I think it's to take you from being a functional leader, an operational leader, to being a strategic decision maker. And that's a key goal of our program. And as I say, that's not just the quality of the faculty, that's the quality of the participants. So typically we have around 60 participants with on average 14 years work experience with a minimum of 3 years leadership experience. And I emphasize that's a minimum because for the majority of our participants, these are folks that have responsibility for serious budgets and manage a large number of people. I would also add one more thing is that, you know, as Professor Kisilowski pointed out, you know, the top business schools in the world have a particular specialty, be it finance at Wharton or marketing at Northwestern or leadership at Harvard. we try to promote what we call cross-sectoral conversation. So we have participants that are from the corporate sector, participants that are entrepreneurs, participants from the not-for-profit sector, and participants from the public sector, because we fundamentally believe that the 21st century management challenges necessitate active and open engagement across sectors. And this is one of the most important things that we strive for. Thanks.
So just to sum up, the logistics of the program was outlined in the setup. It's centered around the modules. The tuition is 25,000 euro for the entire experience. It doesn't include obviously accommodation and travel, but accommodation and travel is facilitated through numerous partnerships that we have, both with hotels in Vienna and Budapest, and with Lufthansa Group on the flight side of things. Professor Akbar, I think you should wrap it up. Oh, unmute. Still, we still don't hear you.
We are living in unprecedented times where our movements have been limited in an incredible way. But we're the CEU MBA program for the open world, and we invite you to join us in this journey to create an extraordinarily valuable conversation for the organizations that you work and lead, in order not just to become better professionals, but to also make a fundamental contribution to the development of our society. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Yusaf and Maciej. We will take the questions from the chat box and the Q&A at the end of the event in the Q&A session at 7:30. We will go on with the transnational alumni presentation on the program's impact, because it's one thing to hear the story from us, but it's another story, it's another thing to hear the story from people who have actually done the MBA so far. I would like to introduce 3 alumni who we're very pleased to have them tonight. Thomas Hofleitner, Lenny Moore, and Chitesh. Thomas Hofleitner, I want to introduce them briefly to you. Thomas Hofleitner has a professional background in banking and fintech, from Raiffeisen to Bank Austria to UBS Switzerland as the functional lead wealth management IT EMEA. He's now operating head at HIAG Data in Switzerland. Lenny is an experienced business advisor and management consultant for small and medium companies in accelerated phases of growth. She co-founded Tandem Leap with a fellow alumni from CEU. She later joined Oval Digital as a co-founder in New York City. And Chitesh is an ITIS consultant with many years of industry experience. Based in Stockholm, he's now heading a strategic business unit across Europe with a total turnover of $110 million and a team of around 2,000 technology experts worldwide. Feel free again to add your questions in the Q&A section, as we will have time to ask Thomas, Lenny, and Chitesh a few of them. And I would like to ask basically the same question to all of 3, but to get their individual perspectives. How did CEU MBA impact your professional career? Thomas, you've got the floor, please.
Sorry, I was on mute. So basically, when I think back, what the main big reasons have been why I've chosen CEU as a business school those days. And a couple of years ago, I made the decision to go to Budapest and attend the CEU business school. I mean, those days, the main reasons have been that, first of all, I'm a European. I was always convinced that I want to stick within the Central and Eastern European Union, and I want to accelerate my career progression within Europe. So this was the main reason to join this open dialogue and in Budapest with the Central Eastern European University, to develop additional strong professional network within CE, and to boosting key knowledge and skills with diverse and already successful people in my classroom. This was for sure one of the key elements where I've made the decision to join forces within the CEU team those days. Bottom line, now working more than 10, 12 years in Switzerland, still in the banking fintech industry, I can say it was really a huge advantage to study abroad in another city or even a country, which has given me invaluable insights into different markets and also job opportunities, because those days banks and fintechs, in my case it was a Swiss bank, they've been looking for strategic advice and strategic and business development outside the box guys who are shaping a little bit their strategic agenda, how to move from a country like Switzerland to Central Eastern Europe. And it was really a good challenge and really interesting in working from the beginning with Swiss colleagues, EMEA colleagues, but also with an established network in Central Eastern Europe. So this was, bottom line, the main advantage I had in my whole educational program with CEU.
Thanks, Thomas. Lenny, would you like to proceed?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Lanny Moore, and I graduated from the one-year full-time MBA program in 2012. I pursued my MBA at CEU because I was looking to make a career change between from nonprofit background to the for-profit world. And I really wanted a meaningful international experience. And I did also love the one-year program format, which, you know, Maciej referenced, just the flexibility of being able to do this program and also keep your job and not lose too much time out of the workplace. So that was really important for me. I had never been to Budapest before I moved there to attend CEU, so I was also excited about having that kind of adventure. And I knew that earning my MBA would help me professionally, but I have to say that the ways in which my experience at CEU changed the course of my life were really unexpected. I have thought a lot about my time at CEU these past few months, because when I was there in 2011-12, we were experiencing the lingering effects of the 2008 financial crisis, and we're around the height of the Euro crisis. So studying a global economic event while it was occurring, where it was occurring, was a really profound experience for me. And I've thought a lot about that this spring as we've been facing the pandemic. It's just an incredible time to study business, leadership, and management. So I want to shout out, you know, Maciej and Yusaf for making this opportunity possible for you all right now. The way they've developed this EMBA program in the midst of a global crisis is really admirable, and I think it's evidence of the integrity of the education at CEU. I had both of them as professors, and I can tell you that they are world-class educators and program leaders. They're challenging, inspiring, and they are always available to you as students and to us as alumni. Since graduating, I relocated back to the USA, and I moved to New York City, where I had never lived before. Post MBA, I formed a consulting practice with one of my CEU classmates. My business partner, Mary, and I, we had shared an interest in technology design and development while we were studying at CEU. And we were able to network in the local Budapest tech community as part of and also separate from our classwork. One of our final classes was called Action Learning, and that was a class in which we were split up into groups of 4 to 6 students assigned an entrepreneur or a CEO who we'd work with on their real life business. And basically, Mary and I took what we did as that class project out into the real world and used it as a basis for starting our company. And I know as an EMBA, you already have real world businesses to work on already, but I'm just very optimistic that you can meet your future business partners, future employees, or future customers from the CEU network in serendipitous ways like I did. So that was 8 years ago now, and since then I've worked as a management consultant, business development professional, advisor, board member, and most recently I joined a tech startup as an early stage co-founder. My degree has added credibility to my professional resume, but I've also used my education at CEU in very practical ways. One of the classes we took was entrepreneurial finance, and I contacted my professor from that class a few years later to get his help with a complex financial model that I was working on based on the template that he had shared with us during class. He was more than happy to assist, and we even ended up meeting in person when he and his wife visited New York City later that summer. So that's just one example of how helpful the business school professors are at CEU and really go out of their way to stay connected to us. I really can't say enough positive things about my time as a student or how my studies at CEU truly changed my life. So please feel free to reach out to me if I can help you make the decision to join this program. And I'm happy to pass the mic to another alum.
Thank you, Lenny. Chitish, would you like to continue?
Yes, thank you, Thomas. I think obvious reasons for to choose an MBA program, but CEU was not an accident. I was living in Budapest already. That became the most convenient choice for me. I was, probably about Peter's principle that I was probably at the level where I could reach maximum in my based on my capabilities and the way I was, and I can say that before CEU and after CEU there is Jitesh 2.0 and 3.0 two versions, right? So my career actually significantly transformed after that. I was, as Yusaf was telling earlier, I was more of a functional leader, and from there my career leapfrogged to becoming a strategic decision maker in the organization, driving the business of a very important business of the company. So I'm very grateful to the faculty and the networks I was able to build. I still have a copy of Never Eat Alone. It's Maciej recommended us in his first class, and some of the very important tips given in the transnational strategy class by Yusaf. All those things, are highly practical, and I'm able to use many of those things very, very clearly. It is like playing a copybook shot in cricket. From India, I can't and have a conversation without quoting cricket. I always been able to use that and still using it. So CEU also gave me more than the course and its curriculum. It creates a network, an environment, a community around you. So you can always reach out to people even after the school finished. And I'm now living in Sweden. I moved on from Budapest last year, and then in Sweden, I'm still in touch with my cohort, my professors. I know that I can reach out to Maciej or Yusaf. It's all about giving a call, and I can always discuss things I need advice and consulting from. That's great. And thank you, CEU. Thank you, everyone. I think if you take a decision to join this MBA program, I'm sure that it will transform you.
Thank you very much, Jitesh. We now move to the next step of the agenda, which is the meeting with the current students, which might be of interest to those people who are considering applying for this year's intake or for the next year's intake, because you want to get an insight, what does the class look like? And we've got a couple of current students here in class, which I want to address right now. We've got Konstantin and Daniele, to whom I want to direct the question, what attracted you to the CEU Executive MBA? By the way, sorry, Konstantin is assistant to the board and COO of Austrian Post. He deals with strategy, corporate innovation, and smart city logistics. And Daniele is transformation director at Adidas with more than 10 years of experience in consulting and corporate organizations in more than 30 countries. Please go ahead.
Hi, Thomas. May I start? My name is Konstantin. I'm working for the Austrian Post, as Thomas just introduced me. I studied law, but I did some 7 years now in the logistics sector. And so I had nearly no contact yet to stuff like marketing or finance, and I really wanted to get more insights into these topics. And that's why I was looking for an MBA or an executive MBA. That's maybe also the next reason, executive. I did not want to take off 1 year from work. So I was looking for a part-time or executive MBA. And then CEU opened a great campus in Vienna. And that was why I was taking a look at them. Yes, and so far it's been really great. I really like the idea of these different backgrounds of the students, where they come from, what they have done so far. It's a very big thing in our classes that you ask the students about what they think. So it's not just a one-way lessons. It's very important that you get feedback from the class and from their experiences so far. So that was really a big point for me, and I really liked it. And so far, I'm very happy that I'm here, and really looking forward to also meeting everybody in person. As until now, it has just been some online courses, which have been great so far. But it's a very new experience for us, I think, for everybody doing this. And I'm really looking forward to meeting them in person. Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Konstantin. Daniele, would you like to proceed?
Yeah, sure. So thank you, Thomas, and thank you everyone for joining tonight. My name is Daniele, and I basically had the opportunity to live in 6 countries over my professional life, which counts over 10 years of experience in different sectors. So right now I'm based in Portugal, and I'm working at Adidas within the business transformation context. So if I think about my professional experience and of course, the old days at university, where I studied basically in Italy marketing around 15 years ago, basically I could think about a number of opportunities that joining CEU in 2020 could offer me. So first of all, the opportunity to join a truly international environment, and being able to connect with a number of like-minded professionals that basically focusing on developing cutting-edge leadership skills to move into a strategic leadership role. The second reason, having lived for over a year in Budapest some times ago, CEU for me has been always a very interesting university, and the perception of the brand has been very high on my mind. And of course, I think that it's great now to be part of this CEO community. And I'm really looking forward to connecting face-to-face with the rest of this group when we're going to meet in mid of August. Finally, I think that the structure of the program is something that is clearly great. There are not many other programs, executive MBAs around the world that really offer the opportunity to develop leadership skills at this level within just a little bit over 2 years. And I think that this is really offering me to also keep working, developing my career, and adding value to the organization that I'm currently working for, step by step, based on key learning points that I'm sure that I'm taking on step by step through the modules. And this is clearly something that I could see. So we had about a month ago the kickoff session It was a virtual session, and I took at least a couple of very interesting points that helped me to deliver a couple of pieces of work that have been absolutely value-adding for the organization. So I tried to summarize in 3 bullets basically the key opportunities that attracted me to CEU. Now back to Thomas for the next questions.
Thank you very much. We've got Victoria and Zach online who will be doing the next question. Victoria is Vice President of Morgan Stanley. She's the team lead of the financial modeling team and coordinator of Smarties program Girls in IT. And Zach is the marketing manager for Cochlear and directing strategic marketing activities in 32 countries in CEE. Victoria, would you go first answering the question, how do you see CEU Executive MBA improving your professional opportunities?
Yes. So why I think it is a great opportunity is because I would say Morgan Stanley is my very first real workplace. So before that, I only worked very briefly for another company. And I don't really have too much experience, of course, with other companies. So I thought that that would be a great idea to meet with other professionals from different areas of the market. And also to share our opinions and just to see how other people or how other industries see the same problem, or how they face the same problem we have, or if they have at all the same problems we have. And just to see how certain discussions are going on within other teams, or just at all how we can improve our presentation skills and our communication skills with so many different kind of background and a great diversity of people, which I also really like in CEU. So that was also one of my major points here, that I like the idea to have so many different people from so many different countries in the same place, because this is how you can really know other cultures and other way of thinking.
Thank you very much. Zach, would you like to step in?
Yes, good evening, Thomas. Good evening, everybody. Thank you. So I actually relocated from the United States to take this job opportunity that I'm currently in. And this is a new role for my company in this region. So unfortunately, there's not much history or internal intellectual capital that I can leverage in order to be successful in the Central and European region. So certainly I will learn a lot by doing. I will learn a lot by trial by fire. But once the opportunity with CEU came up, I recognize this as an opportunity to simply surround myself with professionals who are more experienced and more educated about this region than I am. And so ultimately the intent of this journey for the next couple of years with CEU and my cohort classmates is to broaden and accelerate my learning curve by leveraging this knowledge base and experiencing the academic part of what this team has to offer. So clearly you can see that the academic agenda is robust, it's diverse, it's intense. And I think there's a huge opportunity to get outside of the daily business grind and take a good, hard intellectual review on the academic side of things. So ultimately, I anticipate this is going to open more opportunities within my company to have a greater influence on the limited resources that we have. And I do fully expect to be a part of creating more opportunities and have a more significant impact on our regional strategy and execution. Thank you, everybody, for the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Zach. The next question goes to Kimbut and Lydia. Kimbut is the Chief of Staff for Security Program at Citibank and a professional climate change activist and gender equality advocate. And Lydia, she's Director of the Institutional Relations, Communication and Strategic HR at Pelion Healthcare and an activist for open societies. And the question that I have for you is, how important are the values of the program and CEU as a university in your decision to join the CEU Executive MBA?
Kim, we don't hear you. Yes, the classic mistake of not unmuting. Yeah, thanks, Lydia. Hi, everyone. Regarding the values, to echo a little bit what was said about the alumni, I was first exposed to just the brand of CEU and its values through the alumni, because I have a surprising amount of people who've studied in CEU, either full-time or the master's degrees among my social circle. And at a certain point, I've started noticing that there is one common denominator with them. It's like with all of them, it's like not just there is this high moral integrity and principles and very high awareness what is an open society, etc., but also they've all studied in the CEU. So it's kind of like that's what put the CEU on my radar. And then even about the MBA, I've learned through alumni. Like I've just got told, like, are you aware that there is this, there is this program is like going on, and right now the intake just started. And yes, you can read about the CEU mission and values on their website. It's one thing, but it's a completely different thing to see that then the alumni who went through that, they actually, those values, they actively contribute to policy writing projects across Europe. They actively add to human rights, to gender equality, and the gender equality is the hill I'm willing to die on. And this was the key factor that kind of like helped me make this decision to commit to CEU, because it is quite a commitment time-wise and attention-wise. Yes, it is very flexible, but at the same time, you can find flexibility elsewhere. You can go for your local MBA program, but here I think we have the opportunity to get this unique combination of both very highly skilled professionals with the already core values, and also we can get the opportunity to polish all that with the help of our faculty and with the help of the professors. And it's going to be like the two-way dialogue. And that's another, like, one of the things, one of the values is like the hierarchy of the opinions doesn't really matter that much. So basically logistics it was like a nice third factor when I was making the decision, and the values and the overall impression and reputation of CEU was the key factor.
My turn.
Yes,
thanks.
Over to
Thanks.
you.
Thank you so much, Kim. First of all, thank you very much for your invitation. It's so nice to see you all. And I have to say at the very beginning that after our first sessions that we had a few weeks ago, I already feel that I belong to this community, and I miss our meetings and sessions. And I think that this is the most important thing, that we already feel that we are so much engaged and we are a part of this community. And this is absolutely fantastic. And I have to say that somehow I've been connected to CEU for many years, because I have lots of friends. And I agree with Kim that first of all, when you talk to them and when you talk about their educations, they experience from CEU, you can basically see and you feel it, that they live these values, that they understand these values, that they really incorporated them in their lives. And this is something that is very touchy, and it's something that made me jealous, and I wanted to be a part of that community. That's why, I mean, jealous in a very positive sense, that I wanted to basically share this commitment and this motivation to be a part of this community. So values were extremely important for me, and that was one of the most important factors that made me convinced that that was a right move in my professional and private life. So I'm very happy that I decided to do it, and thank you very much to everybody who convinced me and somehow encouraged me to apply. So thank you so much. And first of all, to you, Thomas, for all our discussions that we had during the application process, and to Professor Kisilowski as well, for all information I got from you. That was really really important. And I hope that we will all meet soon and share our experience and develop our skills during the face-to-face meetings. And I really keep my fingers crossed for that.
Thank you. Thank you. We're so glad to have you in the program, guys. We're now moving to the Q&A session. So please feel free to add your questions about the program or anything related in the Q&A section. Let me start with some questions that were already added to the Q&A box. I would like to start with Yusaf with a question on logistics, on the frequency of flights during this current situation and open borders.
Well, obviously, you know, I'm not in charge of Schengen, so I can't necessarily open those borders like that. But what we can guarantee everybody who, because of the temporary flight disruption caused by COVID-19, are not able to physically be with us, that we have state-of-the-art technology in our classrooms that will enable you to participate with us even though you're not physically with us. So you'll be able to take the class online and be as close as possible, technologically speaking, to what's going on in our classroom. And then as soon as the flights are resumed, we will be very happy to have you physically with us on campus.
Thank you very much. Maciej, there's a question for you. How international is the university?
Thank you. I mean, uniquely international. And, you know, as Thomas mentioned, I have studied at major American universities that pride themselves of bringing students from all over the world. And even compared to those places, CEU is unique, because CEU, what is unique at CEU is not only the diversity, but also the fact that it kind of doesn't belong to any particular country. And this is actually because we moved, as many of you know, we moved from Budapest to Vienna, our main headquarters. We still keep the beautiful campus where we have 3 out of our 9 modules in Budapest. But we are now both, we've always been a New York State accredited university. So we are actually an American institution, not only in spirit, but legally. I am a lawyer by training, so those things are important to me. Now we are also an Austrian university. So your degree would be both a New York State degree and an Austrian degree. But the spirit of the place, the atmosphere, does not belong even to the US or to Austria. It's a spirit where you don't have any national group kind of creating a dominant narrative so that everybody else kind of feels like partly guests, yes, invited to someone's party. It's everybody's party, yes, and the fact that we have this year, it's not unusual. I mean, every year we have above 100 nationalities represented at CEU, and we are a very small institution. Altogether, we have about 2,000 students. We are a tiny institution. We have an amazing student-faculty ratio, the number of very low number of students to the number for one faculty. It's 8 graduate students per one faculty member, and this is comparable to like top American universities. And in this very small group, you have all those backgrounds, and it's not only nationalities. The diversity is not only international dimension. The diversity is what Professor Akbar mentioned, the various sectors of economy that we don't, also because we can offer such an unprecedentedly affordable tuition, we are attracting people from a variety of industry, from a variety of sectors and backgrounds who really contribute to the discussion. So it's a diversity at multiple dimensions. We have designated programs to support disadvantaged communities of different sort. More details on this are on our website, and all of this has kind of one goal: to create an experience that takes you out of your comfort zone, and that really takes these sort of established patterns of management and leadership that you have developed over years and make you revisit them so that you move from this operational functional routine that you sometimes face, we all do, and take this leap towards the strategic level. That's the goal of this.
Thank you, Maciej. There's a question for Yusaf. How would you describe the teaching and learning approach?
So we fundamentally, thanks for the question, we fundamentally believe that learning at the graduate level, particularly at executives as well, is a two-way process. Speaking as a faculty, I'm constantly learning from the participants. They bring extraordinary insight into our discussions. And so I often think of myself not so much as an instructor or as a quote unquote lecturer, but as someone that conducts and orchestrates a conversation between highly intelligent, highly knowledgeable, highly ambitious people who really want to be able to learn from each other and share their knowledge. And so in practical terms, what that means is I think I even stop giving lectures. I don't even do lectures. We only have facilitated discussions. We'll often break it up into smaller teams in breakout rooms. We'll do case analysis and so on. And I think this is a philosophy that all the faculty believe in, and it's something that we're incredibly proud of, actually, because we think that it's something that you don't find in too many places.
Thank you, Yusuf. The next question for Maciej refers to work-life balance and the program structure. How would you assess the work-life balance of the program?
So that was important aspect that we were thinking about and consulting with our alumni when we were kind of creating a new format. As we were moving to Vienna, we created this brand new format for the program, and the program is intensive. I mean, it's hard work, but it's manageable compared to alternatives that you would have among part-time programs. It's almost like a universal opinion of alumni that the benefits of this modular format outweigh any challenges that it creates. That the typical part-time programs are weekend formats. You come every second or third weekend, and I am a parent of two preschoolers, and I even on the teaching in that weekend format always made me realize that this is taking a continuous toll on my family life, because basically for 1.5 or almost 2 years you continuously you have all your week work and then you have a working weekend. So compared to that, we believe that actually taking a few days off at the times where for most people those weeks where we ask you to take days off are kind of easier weeks to do it, either because of a popular European holiday like May 1st, or because it's the middle of summer, in middle of August, when Budapest is actually beautiful, and it can be also an anchor for your vacation plans. So we believe that it is one of the best options on the market to actually make this sustainable, work-wise and life-wise. Yes, I mean, as you can see on the slide in front of you, it requires you to be for 3 consecutive August for this 1 week to be in Budapest. So that's the rest. Everything comes with a price, yes. But for that, you don't need to spend 20 or 30 weekends like most of our competitors ask you to do studying. You have 9 modules. and you get a full American MBA, 50 credit American MBA degree.
Thank you, Maciej. Jitesh, are you still there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am.
Perfect. Because there's a question towards the alumni community. How would you describe the alumni network? What are its strengths? Is it approachable?
Yeah, the alumni network, in my experience, it's actually, for me, it expanded beyond the cohort or the year I was in the university. I'm very closely connected with people who are, who studied like 5 years before me, or many years after me. I have connections with them, and because the way university holds people together, it is really makes it possible for you to seamlessly communicate, because you're all connected through similar set of values. So the university induced those values into you. That actually helps. And the alumni organization in the university also promotes that. So you're always welcomed back. You're always able to connect. It's a passport into a community.
Thank you. That's true. There's a question to Yusaf. Yusaf, you mentioned the program is designed for mid-career managers who have handled significant budgets. Can you say a bit more about the target career stages of students in relation to specific modules, please?
So we fundamentally believe that an executive program should reflect not just intellectual...
We don't hear you well, Yusaf.
Oh, sorry, because I did not press unmute, but now I have. And so you can see an incredibly high capability of your faculty, technologically speaking. Sorry about that. I'll start again. My apologies. So we fundamentally believe that an executive program needs to have not just high-level intellectual activity, and just to emphasize, CEU is a research university. We pride ourselves on the intellectual contribution that our university makes to the world. That's very important, and you'll experience that with our faculty. But we also believe that hands-on experience of managing complexity, both in terms of people, in terms of budgets, is also important. And certainly the one thing I've noticed is that, for example, we'll have some folks coming into the program, running a unit, managing, maybe 3-digit million budgets, who is an expert in project management, but definitely wants to learn about how to manage people better. Or you might have someone who perhaps isn't a very, very effective communicator, and manages large numbers of people, say in a PR function or in a public affairs function, but is absolutely scared to death of finance. And I think what's really important is, it's not just the professors that are going to help you develop. You're going to be able to call upon each other for support. And in fact, one of the things we do in the modules is we have support teams. And these support teams are deliberately diverse so that everyone is, I don't use the word force, but everyone ends up dealing with difference. And it's that dealing with difference, which at first can be very messy, there can be conflict, but once you get beyond that, I think the learning synergies are quite remarkable. So in that sense, we don't assume you know everything, but we know that everyone coming into this program has unquestioned expertise in one particular area. And we think that's super important for the direction and success of our program.
Thank you, Yusuf. Maciej, do students have access to campus in Budapest and Vienna in between modules? Can they use the facilities, etc.?
Yes, of course. Both physical facilities and the very generous online resources that we have. I mean, CEU library is the largest English language library in the region, and it has been consistently moving, even before COVID, way before COVID. It's been moving online with a lot of online books, online periodicals that are available for members of our community. So yes, you can use all those resources. Generally, you can use all the resources of the university, our career services, our alumni network, in terms of in case you need already during your program to connect with some alumni. All of those things are available for you. You are actually considered a resident student for 3 academic years during your program. So you finish, your last module is in August, but for the entire year after August, you still keep your student privileges at CEU. That is actually part of the reason why this is, you know, we obviously discourage it, but there are some situations when people need to miss a module, and then we simply offer them to do this module after their final module with the next cohort.
Thank you, Maciej. One question to Yusaf concerning the big point, application. How does the application process look like? Do you have any tips for the application? What are the requirements? And does experience count if you don't have a university degree?
Lots of questions there. So let me just sort of walk through the application process. Online on our website, you'll find all of the sort of practical information you need to apply. We need people with a minimum of 8 years professional experience, of which 3 are demonstrated leadership experience. If you don't have an English language undergraduate degree and you cannot prove you have significant experience of working in the English language, then you have to take an English language test. But since many of our executives, you know, on a daily basis are working in the English language, even though they don't have an English language degree, we can find ways to waive that requirement. You're going to need a professional references. Again, some folks are starting back at university after a very long time, so it may not be so easy to get academic references. We definitely need professional references. And unfortunately, to take a graduate qualification at CEU, you must have successfully completed an undergraduate degree in all circumstances, unfortunately.
Thank you, Yusuf. Are there any more questions from the audience that you would like to address? I don't see any more incoming at the moment. So, well, I've seen from the chat so far, from the Q&A entries that I received, we went literally worldwide during the streaming of the virtual open day. So the claim that we're the second most international university in the world is no empty phrase. It basically happened tonight too. But before you leave, make sure to get in touch with me. You've already been in touch with me via email. Book one-on-one slots with me if you have any more, questions. If you want to go in detail with some regard. And the application deadline is June 14th. And thank you for joining, and goodbye. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And Akos, can you post in the chat to everybody?
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead. If you can share the link to the slots.
I just added the application link, and Akos will add the link to the booking system to book consultation with me.
Yes, so you can use this. You can use this to very easily book a session with Thomas to get more information about your particular situation. It's in the chat at the moment.
I'll be happy to guide you through your application. Please get in touch with me.
Thank you so much, and thank you all, to all fellow panelists. This was great. Thank you. Have a good evening.